Hello and welcome to a new episode of All Pleasure, No Guilt. Today, we're going to take a little departure from our reality home and we're going to a different kind of home, a scripted home, a scripted town. We're talking from season 3, episode 1. My name's Jack, and with me is my wonderful co host, Michelle. Michelle, please introduce yourself to our new listeners.
Hello, new listeners. My name is Michelle. As Jack said, I am a failed actress. I also have a background working in bits and pieces of film and television, went to film school, majored in screenwriting, worked in PR for a while, reputation management, so mostly politicians and high net worth individuals, businessmen, that kind of thing. If anybody knows how to string together a narrative, it's me. If anybody knows how to look at things from every angle, it's me. I'm also proudly and very vocally autistic, and I have ADHD. So I become obsessed with minor details, and sometimes I miss them out altogether. I originally hail from Washington, D.C., and spent 15 years in London. And at the moment, I'm here in Los Angeles. So I am super excited. Before Jack introduces himself, I'm just going to explain a little bit what we're going to do today. I'm going to share my favorite fan theory that I've come across. I'm not going to go super into detail there. Um, we are going to talk about the highlights of the episode. So, not a beat for beat recap, but just,
More of a thematic discussion.
yes, you watched the show. You don't need us to read out the lines. Um, And then we're going to talk about my theory based on a little research that I've done.
Well, and thanks to Michelle's beautifully autistic mind, we got really into some interesting territory because there's a lot to get into with a show like this. And before we go too far along, let me just give you a quick rundown of me. I'm from New York originally, been in LA about 10 years. I've worked on things you have heard of before. I've worked for the New York Post and CBS and the Howard Stern Show and the Artie Lang Show, and you've heard my voice on commercials. You don't know it, but you have. I was a voiceover guy for a long time, not really doing that right now, focused on this project. And I've been watching From since the beginning. It was actually what made me want to start a podcast to begin with. And there's so much in this show, and I feel like it's a really great place to dive in. It's from the creators of Lost, as you all know. So we have the puzzle box of it all. And I feel like this is a good place to start doing something a little bit different for us. And why are we covering this show? We focus on relationships and when I introduced Michelle to this show just recently, and she really power watched to get ready for
I
this,
sure did.
is we were talking about how we do a thematic relationship discussion and moving away from reality TV, which in a lot of ways feels less real than From. We were curious and thinking about, we were kind of bandying about ideas of, which one of us would survive and how would we handle, would we go to the town, would we go to Colony House? And that discussion kept growing, and we realized, okay, this fits what we do here because we like to talk about societal interactions and people working against people, monsters working against people.
That's right. And we're all about the subtext, the things that are shown but not told. So, yeah, that's
And I do want to say straight up, obviously, look, I've been a fan of this show. I've consumed podcasts for this show and similar shows. We want your theories, we want your thoughts. And, you're going to be able to reach us in a couple of different places.
absolutely. The first of which is our Google Voice line, which you will have immediate access to at the $5 level of our Patreon, which is patreon.com/APNG, I think. We'll put the link in the show notes.
Trust the
But
notes.
if you search Patreon for All Pleasure No Guilt, you'll find us. It's got our faces on it and everything. We're looking into other methods for that, but we really want this to be a dialogue, and not just between us, but with you, the audience. We really want to hear your theories. You can write to us anytime at apngpod@gmail.com. We will read your comments on the air. You don't have to pay for that. Um,
And you can include your name if you do want credit, but you don't have to. You can
yes,
always stay anonymous here.
absolutely right. We are really excited. One of the great privileges of covering a show like this is the audience participation.
Participation.
Participation. So we would love to hear from you. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Just going to give one little disclaimer here, just in case there's any extra sensitive people out there. We're sensitive, but we like to have a good time, and we're going to make jokes. So I'm just getting that out of the way now.
Yeah, and we swear a lot.
We do. This is suppose this is, we should just say up front, it's marked, but it's an NSFW pod.
Yeah, probably. Like if you've got kids that are like 3 and under, you're probably safe. But we do have frank discussions about what people's pubic hair might look like and things like that.
So, yes, without further ado, Michelle, let's get into it. Where do you want to start? Do we want to pick everyone? Everyone's caught up. Do we need to do any sort of season 2 refresher or anything? I think we can just pick it up.
No, I think we should just do what I said we were going to do at the beginning of the show, which, if you were listening, is starting with a Reddit user whose name is, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. I apologize ahead of time for every mispronunciation. I am trying my best.
I do too. We're doing our best, and please feel free to correct us if we say anything wrong.
There is a Reddit user named Taryn Matheru who is a writer himself. He has presented an extremely compelling tarot card theory, or tarot game theory. Now, he's done an excellent job, and I will post links to this in the show notes. There's 2 posts in particular. The basis of this theory is that there was a witch whose child was stolen from her. And it's unclear whether she was part of the indigenous population in Newfoundland, Canada, where this show is not set, but where it's filmed.
Yes. Nova Scotia, Atlantic provinces.
Yes, exactly. So indigenous Canadian people, it's not mentioned in the theory. And if I missed that, I'm sorry. But she's an accused witch whose child is taken away from her. She is killed. She plays a game of taroke, which is the original tarot card game from the late 1400s.
And when you
that
say
was born
game,
in
because like people, like I'm an average Joe. I don't, but I like tarot. I watch tarot on YouTube. Is it a game, or is there a game that goes along with tarot?
there's infinite number of games you can play with it. Really, it's so old, you can make up your own rules, and it's not that big of a deal.
But essentially, like a card games of a sort, not necessarily based within tarot when you're doing the game.
Yes,
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay.
This, I believe it's a gentleman. This gentleman's theory is essentially about this accused witch making a deal with the devil or the man in black,
a little lost callback right there.
Right, to get her child back. And then there's various correspondences with archetypes. Archetypes are another thing that lots of fans have talked about. But essentially, this is a game between 2 sides. And unlike many discussions that we're having in the world at the moment, it's nuanced. There isn't one entirely bad side and one entirely good side. But it's said that, for example, Father Khatri may represent the man in black, and
Yes.
that's the side that Boyd is on. Whereas the other side is more corresponding with the witch. Victor, for example.
Yes.
Um, to use one tiny piece to illustrate it, a gentleman who wrote this theory has said that the witch corresponds with the star card in tarot, and we hear the song "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star."
Yes.
So the witch could be the one protecting Victor. We don't know. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's even videos on YouTube that explain this theory. So if you're a TLDR person, which will never be me,
Yeah,
and
this
that's not
isn't the
a
show for that.
no, that's not a judgment. I could read things forever. I That's my preferred way to process and
Well, I
absorb
have to say,
information.
I think that works for the audience because as we've seen, I mean, I'm enthralled by the interest and the talk and the discussion going on online. I mean, there's a lot of From fans out there.
Yes, and we will post links to our favorite YouTube channels.
Yes.
Any YouTube creators, any other podcasters, people who want to collaborate,
We are open.
email us apngpod at gmail.com.
And I have to say, before you go forward here, it was sort of, let's just say we all know this episode ends a little dark. And it was one of those things where I was watching this with Michelle and my wife, Diana, and they've both kind of gotten pulled into it by me because I was like, it's a really cool show. And they don't really love scary things
That's
necessarily.
not true. I do. She
You
doesn't.
you do, but this rattled you. It was late
I don't
Sunday.
like torture of
Yes,
any kind.
it was it was one of those things, folks, where that episode ends and I'm like, damn, now no one's going to want to podcast about this with me. And that only lasted for like 20 minutes and then Michelle went into her deep dive and stayed in that deep dive for about 48 hours.
I sure did. Now, should we get to the episode breakdown?
Yes, we should.
I didn't want to jump back and forth too much. So I've done this by location.
I like this, and again, we are working on this. So if there's any feedback on the way we're breaking things down, let us know. But we really like the location breakdown because, as we see in this episode, we have no idea what the timeline
Nope.
is. After all, and we'll get to this, but I don't know. Victor's dad looks like he's about 52, and Victor's about 52. So clearly the trees moving and the slow season changes are having an effect.
Yeah, they look the same age, I thought. Anyway, Camden, Maine is significant to me.
Oh, this was a fun little Easter egg for you.
Yes, my father's uncle bought a piece of land and built a cottage
Brag.
in. All right, I don't accept that. It's not like I did it. He bought a piece of land and built a small cottage that, fortunately, fingers and toes crossed, is still in my family 2 generations on, in Camden, Maine. And so I know this town and this area like the back of my hand.
And I noticed that you had a reaction at the end of season 2, at the end when Tabitha's pushed through the lighthouse window. You It looked familiar to you and you couldn't quite place it. The background looked really familiar.
It did. I think the only thing that I can add as someone who's, you know, been there many, many times is that view can only be taken atop one of 3 mountains that are on the bay. Um, there isn't a hospital up there. And they didn't film it there, so I didn't expect it to look exactly like Camden.
How was did it look pretty good in terms of, like, I know the town that they're shooting in Nova Scotia is a good deal larger than Camden, which is quite small. Does it have like the feel though? Does it have that Northeast New England
Yeah,
Atlantic
definitely.
province?
I what I love most about Camden, apart from everything really, is that the town itself will not allow any franchises to build. So there's no fast food, there's no like Tree, there's no anything like
Is
that.
it a town of mom and pop
It
shops?
is,
That's
yeah, which I think
fantastic.
is really special.
I
And
love
the
that.
main street is just so beautifully kept. And anyway, it's really nice.
So it's clean like Canada.
Yes, it's clean like it's clean. Yeah. Um, so Tabitha wakes up there. The doctor, foolishly, in my opinion, says, "Oh, the police are on their way," which causes her to run because obviously she doesn't want to get trapped somewhere having to explain her whereabouts.
Well, it did lead to when she gets up in the hospital at the end of season 2, you specifically said, okay, at least she wasn't an idiot pulling her IV out of her arm. But of
And then she
course,
did. Yeah. And nothing happened. As long as you put pressure on that area, it doesn't come like squirting out. But don't ask how I know that. It's not a good idea. Please don't ever do that. Um, Interesting bits and pieces in this. The PA repeats in the hospital, repeats the numbers 321
in a countdown fashion.
repeatedly. Well, not in a
I think
count.
it's well, she's saying 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1 sounds coded to some degree.
Okay.
Hey, that's my theory. We're going to get to each of our theories in this.
Yes.
Keep going. I won't cut you off again.
Another thing that I found, thank you. It's a rare quality in a heterosexual man. Um, how did the priest in the church know that her baby was a he?
That was a really good question because he says what was his name, not
Yes.
what was the child's name.
Also, another eagle eyed Redditor looked up the Bible verse in the church, and it corresponds with something that at the end of it mentions like creatures coming forth from the forest.
Yes.
So that's another interesting little
No, I mean
tidbit.
there's a lot here. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of it's very lore heavy and it's funny cuz like there's some things and I don't know about you. I'm just going to say this real fast, but like some of the lore heavy stuff on things like Game of Thrones, where you're going back and forth between the source material and the show, gets a little like heavy. Where I think the theory crafting on this kind of show and the lore, I feel like that's just there's a lot to mine from, and I feel like there's a lot happening. There's not a lot of stagnant pieces on this show, which is kind of funny because it's about a stagnant town, but everything it's all about the tornado of activity within the town.
Right. While we're here and
Yes.
before we move on,
Still in
I,
Camden, yes.
yes, still in Camden. So Tabitha takes the lunchbox with Victor's address in it. She encounters an older gentleman. He immediately recognizes the lunchbox and says, "Where did you get that?" Now, unpopular theory with me,
Okay.
Tabitha is Victor's missing sister, Eloise.
I hate that theory and disagree with it. I don't think it makes any sense. Also, I mean, look, calls her mother. She's speaking Spanish to her mother. So
She
I'm
didn't
not.
speak Spanish to her
What was
mother.
she? Yeah,
Her
no.
mother spoke
Sorry.
Spanish. She
Excuse
didn't
me. I'm
speak
saying her.
Spanish to her mother.
I said it wrong. Her mother's speaking to her in Spanish. They're having a bilingual conversation. There's been no suggestion that Victor is a bilingual person or comes from a bilingual background or anything. So I'm not sure that that theory makes sense, but at the same time, we're learning new things about how time moves.
Right. And she could have been adopted by a Spanish speaking couple,
Fair.
family,
Yes, this is true.
if you like, I guess.
I think this was just my heavy reaction to like I just that's not where my brain's been going.
I didn't I don't like that because there's no precedent for it.
Right.
Something that I like, it's not established anywhere else. He doesn't recognize her. She doesn't see the drawings and start to remember. She doesn't make drawings herself, as far as I understand. And I think that's something like, yes, could that work either way? Could it be that she's forgotten and she would remember if she saw, but then you have to go, she would remember if she saw the drawings, right? Surely.
Well, because there's been nothing where anyone, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anyone's having like crazy memory loss here. I mean, from does not affect the
Except
memory.
Jim.
Ex-
But we'll get to that in a bit because I think
if you
that's
can't tell, we're super excited to talk about this, and both of us kind of want to say all of the thoughts we have at the same time.
yes.
But
Yes.
we're gonna break it down for you a little bit more. I also just drank like 3 espresso shots, so we're caffeinated for this one.
Caffeinated. Let's go to the sheriff's station.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I do like this theory about Father Khatri being the man in black, or and we'll talk about the man in black in a little bit.
I was
Um,
just laughing when you just brought up Father Khatri because you pointed out like, oh, ghosts get haircuts.
no, you pointed
Oh,
that
did I?
out.
Those.
Yeah,
Oh, I am attributing my own jokes to you.
I appreciate that. That's the ultimate sign of friendship. Giving me the jokes.
You know that hilarious thing you said? Oh, it was me.
But he raises uh Boyd raises the issue of, that thing in the forest was not my wife, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, I do buy into this tarot card theory, not
Which part of it?
the part of it so the devil card in the tarot, which y'all, I'm a tarot card reader myself, so I've been doing that for about 15 years on and off.
She's good.
It was an interesting job to have during COVID. More on that some other time. uh, the devil card features a torch, a devil figure, and there's there's no moral lens on tarot cards, if you get what I mean. Like, people don't like to see the devil or the death card,
Why not?
but
But I think, and here, I'll leave this to you, but it's my understanding that people see devil, death, understandably, those words are upsetting, but in tarot, they go a bit deeper than just the surface word.
they do. And my understanding of tarot, and I'm sure there's many other perspectives on this, there isn't, it's a liminal space, it's a neutral point of view. There are archetypes, but nobody is entirely good or bad. And it's moving beyond that binary, that good and evil binary, that really serves us as a people and as a society. And it would be really great if we could start to apply that to everything in life, but instead that's what we run to and what we grasp when we don't understand something.
Yes.
Anyway, the devil card features the devil figure typically has a torch in one hand that's pointing down, right?
Yep.
And so I was struck by that imagery, that when Boyd was smashing the music box, he has that torch pointed down to the ground, because that's not something that you do typically, right?
That's a really interesting point, and I feel like there is a lot of picture evidence here, graphic evidence that does support this tarot theory.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, I wish we had time, but we just don't.
We'll
And
get to it. We're gonna have
I
time. We got
wouldn't.
3 months of this show.
Yeah, but I mean, to really get into the nitty gritty, I'm just saying, please do go look at this theory, whichever way that you can, because I think it'll excite you as much as it
It'll
excited
pull you
me.
in even more, and I know you're all
Yes,
pulled in already.
exactly. So anyway, Boyd says to Khatri, that thing, whatever it was, sure as hell wasn't my wife. So what are you?
Yeah.
And to which he responds, I'm afraid I can't answer that.
Right, I can't answer that for you, Boyd.
Right.
Now, can he not answer it because he can't answer it, or because he doesn't know? That was where my head went a little bit.
Well, I've always thought that when you see a ghost, that's a projection of some aspect of your personality that you haven't resolved. Ghosts in storytelling, I mean, like um, A Christmas Carol, for instance, is the classic one. They're all what do you call?
Unfinished,
No, disintegrated
not
parts,
disintegrated,
not disintegrated, but
disintegrated.
unintegrated, if you
Yes.
like. I don't really know the word, but yeah. So Scrooge has to integrate these different disparate parts of his personality in order to.
Well, and they're also sort of like amalgams a little bit, right? I mean, they represent a lot. Each of the ghosts of the past, the present, and the future. That encompasses a lot. That's not one thing.
Yes, but they're all unresolved fears
Yeah,
that he has.
absolutely.
Yeah, right?
About each of these periods in his life. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Also, he suffered from severe anxiety.
Oh, I didn't mention that part. Michelle shared her issues. I'm an anxiety warrior, folks.
That's right. So let's move over to the town. So in the beginning, we have Ethan running away, apprehended by RIP Tian Chen.
Yes, yes. And this is Ethan, I will say, I Ethan's really grown on me over the course of the show. Um, he did. You had a really good point, though. You said, is Ethan the smallest 55-year-old man you've ever seen? That's his energy. He's got sort of like old soul energy,
Yeah, but like old before his time. Like there's something.
like a depression era child.
Yeah, there's something, but that reminds me of another Tabitha theory
Okay,
that
go for it.
corresponds with the Chromonocle.
Now, the
So,
Chromonocle, of course, we all know that's Ethan's book.
yes.
Yes.
So the Chromonocle goes to the Lonely Dragon's cave to get a map that enables. And forgive me, I don't know the gender of the Chromonocle.
The Chromonocle is a woman.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Or a
so
female, however. I'm not sure. It's a
I'm
creature.
here for the theory that Tabitha is the Chromonocle and Victor is the Lonely Dragon. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
The map showing the way, all of that, Lonely Dragon, that for days.
Yes.
Now, Julie says to Jim, none of this is your fault.
Right.
That's a big statement.
It's also a big statement from Julie. I mean,
Who never
pardon.
says
I
anything of
was
any consequence.
like, pardon, but like you were in a coma and having nightmare reality dream things. So, do you really know it's not your dad's fault, or are you just trying to be nice?
Well, I think she was speaking on behalf of folks like us who don't understand the level of hate for Jim on the internets.
Yeah,
I don't understand
we
it.
got to do this for a second here because neither of us hates Jim. We had, and which we'll get to in the section, but we have some issue with Jim's strategic planning or lack thereof.
Sure.
But Jim's fine. I don't know, like we've followed him since episode 1 as like this guy's getting used to being in Fromville, right? So I don't know, like it feels a little harsh to be like Jim sucks. He's an asshole. Like,
All of his actions seem to be reactions to what other people do.
do you think that some of the hate for Jim is based on like, okay, let's do this radio tower thing. This is the biggest thing. And the fact that it didn't save them and it just created more mystery and more worry. Do you think that's like sort of the reaction to Jim, or is it Jim's like I couldn't quite gather what the hatred
I don't know,
was.
but let us know if you have really strong feelings about
One way or the other for that
Jim
matter.
one way or the other. Let us know because he's completely inoffensive to me. I've never had an issue with him. I've had an issue with Randall.
But who hasn't had an issue with
Right.
Randall?
Um
If you're the dude sleeping on a bus without blacked out windows while monsters come out at night because you just got to a new town and everybody fucking hates you so much, you got a problem. And you got to but Randall sort of, I'm not sure. He started to rebuild his reputation, then kind of threw it away, and then kind of came back again. We'll get there.
Yeah, I think he came. So look, he tried to steal the goat.
That was the one thing I was referring to.
Victor points a gun at him. Um, Meanwhile, Donna and Boyd meet up to talk about the food shortage. It becomes apparent that the monsters let the animals out. And that's the point where Randall redeems himself by saving the Matthews children and Sarah from the monsters by sheltering them in the bus.
That was great. That was great. I do just want to quickly discuss the intelligence of slaughtering your remaining animals when there is a food shortage coming up. They mention in this that if they slaughter the animals, it will provide 1 month of food.
No, she said if they just do the
Yeah, if
cows.
they do the cows, but we now have lost a cow, obviously, going forward. But my point is, I understand the cows and everything, but if time's moving so slowly, what is that 30 days buying you?
I don't know.
And we didn't see what happened. Like, we didn't see how much food was taken when the townspeople overrun Kenny's mother's home and go to steal all of whatever, I guess. I mean, I would have thought it would have
Man,
been in
if
the
they knew
diner.
what kind of night she was going to have, maybe they would have thought twice.
To say the least.
All right, I can't go there.
No, we're not going there yet.
But that's a nice transition actually to our next place. Actually, I'm going to switch the order of these two things.
Okay.
We're going to go to Colony House
Yeah.
first. Um, so Fatima's throwing up. Um, Apparently, it's too cold to pee outside, or some people are too good for it.
I'm
That
not, look, I get that she's pregnant with a possible demon child or something and she's not feeling well, but like, first of all, why is there seemingly one bathroom in Colony House? That's an interesting thing. And then, if there is one bathroom and all these people are sort of living in this hippie-ish lifestyle, don't you dig a trench like 100 yards away from the
make an
house?
outhouse.
You could do that. Do that.
They've had 20 years of or 40 years of summer even. You don't think like this one toilet thing is not going to happen?
It's bizarre. And then we have I think her name was Nikki, who's all bitchy to Fatima about being in the bathroom. But I don't know. I mean, she might have a little bit of a point.
I need zero encouragement to pee outside. I would so much rather pee behind a dumpster than in a dirty public restroom or gas station bathroom.
See, it's so much different as a man because you're less involved with the bathroom.
Yeah, I get it. Um, the vegetables are all spoiled. The
And
soil is poisoned.
rotting from the ground.
Yes, the soil is poison.
Yeah.
I don't know if she meant that literally or if.
I think she just meant the a top layer of soil was like no good. I don't think anything can grow because it was like, but I don't know. The way she was talking about it made it seem like it was like irradiated or something, not just like it was cold outside. So I don't quite know. I don't think we know how bad the poisoning is yet. But in Colony House, we get the scene with Elgin, who I find Elgin to be a really interesting character. I think he's a good actor. I think he brings a lot of he doesn't say that much sometimes, but he does a lot of facial acting and
Yeah, a
physical
lot going
acting.
on behind the eyes.
Yes,
The only thing that I'll pick him up on
sure.
is he was mouthing some of the other actors' lines
He
during the
was.
scene last season.
But I will say, I could almost see. Couldn't you write that away a little bit as like, well, yeah, he has premonitions, so
Oh, maybe.
maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
Maybe it wasn't
sure.
an acting issue.
No, I'm not here to hate. I think he's very interesting, and like you say, a lot of the work that he has to do is just what's behind the eyes, and he conveys that pretty well.
And he does that from the start. I mean, when on his, he's on the bus, we see he has the premonition about the town before we get to the town, right? Now, he's talking to Tilly, who I know a lot of people are suspicious. I know I'm not alone here. I like Tilly, and that makes me concerned. Michelle, you've also enjoyed
I
Tilly.
like her too. It's interesting that she mentions having had 7 children, and that's the number of children in the Ankui tower.
That was a lot cuter than they are.
I know, they're more like, Ankui!
Ankui, Ankui. Yeah, super creepy. But there we get that 7 kids that, I mean, generally people don't have 7 children, so that's saying something. I also am now wondering,
She also had 7 people in her prayer
7
circle.
people in the prayer circle, and I also wonder, she has like Cheshire cat energy for me
She
a little bit.
does, for sure. She's got major trickster energy.
Yes.
It's interesting that she said it's not so bad once you find the right hobby.
That was really big. And now, again, this is interesting because because it's a quick scene. She's not really having a conversation with Elgin. It's a dream.
That's right.
But I think she is having a conversation with Elgin because I think she's a dream invader.
Well, I don't know what she is, but we have a kimono lady coming through. Now, there's a theory I don't like about her
Okay.
and a theory I like a lot.
Well, there's the main theory, right? Which is a lot of people have put together that she looks
Like
similar
Fatima.
to Fatima. Yes.
Yeah, and there's also a theory that Elgin is Fatima's child,
Right.
which no. However, not to me. I don't like that idea.
I don't like that either.
I don't think it works
Mm-mm.
because if he was coming from the future, why would Marielle be there on that same bus and she hasn't aged
She's not different at
inappropriately?
all, right?
And she said something like, "You've been missing for a year."
To Christy.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
she hasn't, that's why that theory doesn't work for me. What does work for me is that this is a protective figure, not a malign figure. Why do I say that? When she holds him underwater, it's maybe so that he doesn't get trapped by the music box
This was a great point by
thing.
you. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, which I don't know why. Maybe the scene was too upsetting at the time. But yeah, it's the music's going off, and that's when she comes in and pushes him underwater. So I think you have something there with she doesn't want him to hear the music because he would have ended up in the dungeon.
One small point of order on Kui.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what they're saying. I don't it's been suggested that it means that it's a First Nation word for trees.
Yes.
Um, I'm not saying that's not it. I did find the word ANKUI, which is a Cantonese word for hidden loss.
Oh,
And I found that to be way more compelling than they're
trees.
saying trees over and over again.
Well, because the trees, what does that mean? I know the trees are a character of sorts. We know the trees are moving. We know that different areas seem
Well,
to be
that
getting
it's
revealed.
that the trees are or that one tree is a portal to the tower would be the explanation for that. But
It's a bit it's a bit small if they're just saying tree
did
over
I
and
say
over
Mandarin or
again. You said
Cantonese?
Cantonese.
Okay, I might have meant Mandarin. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I remember saying last night, well, they speak Cantonese on the show. So why
Yes.
would they have a Mandarin
That
word
is,
that
yes, you did say
corresponded to
that.
anything? But then when I was doing my research, I found that there might have been early Chinese explorers who interacted with indigenous people in Newfoundland.
And that could have, look, if you go back that far, you got the Bering Land Strait, the Bering Strait, which was walkable back then. So it is conceivable that people would have made it from China to Eastern Canada over a long period of time.
Yeah, or they could sail there. I mean,
Sure.
it's all very interesting and it does bring me to a point that we can't ignore in a series by the same showrunners as Lost.
Oh, I don't know what you're going to say. Let's see what you say.
Well, what is the tie that binds? What do they all have in common?
What do they all have in common? What does everyone who's in From have in common?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I don't know.
Oh, you're
I'm
saying that's the thing. Yeah.
yes. Um
Is there a through line to anything when Jim, Tabitha, Julie, and Ethan end up there? That's like, post terrible loss of a child and a potential divorce coming up. Do you think like
that's a
turmoil?
shitty thing to do, by the way.
What's that?
Like do a like one last trip as a family, like just get divorced.
Well, why? Because it's so depressing that you're going on this forced last RV trip.
Well, that's going to color the children's memories for like decades to come,
Oh, you're looking at the impact on Julie and Ethan.
Yes.
Yes,
Why would you do that to your children?
it's a good point. I think
I
I
think they're still fucking, by the way.
through the whole thing.
Tabitha and
Yeah.
Jim? Yeah, definitely.
Are they? Is it sad or is it like mechanical? What is it?
I think they're very attracted to each other. I've
Okay,
seen them be tender with each other, and
they look good together.
I they do. And I think when you're in a situation like this, you can't tell me that people aren't swapping and swinging at Colony House. I'm just saying.
It's really funny
The
how
sexual energy is palpable.
they showed it a little bit in season one, but like we've really moved away. And I get it; it's been scary, but like you're gonna tell me that at night those like dirty hippies in Colony House are not like, well, I mean, the monsters are outside; they're not inside.
I'm just saying there's a reason that guy Kevin like had a crush on the monster, and it's because nobody else would touch him and he
Wouldn't
was
touch his
having
one-eyed monster.
exactly. And he was done to death with hearing moans and groans and squeaky mattresses all
So
around him
the
all night.
the siren song of a horrifying monster in the form of a pretty girl from the 1950s was a little too
Yes.
much for him.
Yeah, I think so. Um, before we get on to the
Quote,
to
weird log cabin village.
my theory, no, let's go over to the weird log cabin village.
I gotta say, okay, in a show that is full of upsetting things, um, guys, these fucking statues, they're twig creations or corn husk dolls
They're
or
not corn husk
I know, but
dolls.
we were watching The
They're
Office.
sculptures, but
They're not.
they are terrifying.
They were incredibly off-putting. There was the now we saw there's the one they each had like different horrible things done to them. One of them had nails driven into their head, which could be reminiscent. We do have that incident in last season when that one girl is nail gunned in the head. It looks like and
Mhm.
forced to watch her lover get murdered, I believe, before she goes. So there is some precedent. It made me think of Hellraiser personally.
Yeah, I think that was decorative. It didn't feel like that was
I don't think it
showing
was
some kind of
connected.
punishment. But I did think about did you read Cormac McCarthy's The Road or see the
Absolutely.
film?
Yep.
So, you know how the cannibals would put up like skulls
Yes.
so to kind of mark themselves
Oh, so you think
out.
this could have been like more of like a hey, FYI, like we eat people over here.
I don't know, but it came into my brain case and stayed there and rattled around because we see the sort of pioneer man drinking from a skull.
Yes, yes,
So I
yes.
thought cannibalism's definitely going to come into play
Well,
at
but
some point.
it made me think seeing that guy who looks like some sort of like trapper or something like a 18th century guy or something like maybe even yeah no 18th century.
Oh, in the drawing?
Yeah. No, no, no. This guy who was drinking out of the skull.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess, or maybe 19th century, because I guess was he?
It's hard to tell. We don't
It's,
know if it's Civil War era or like
it could be
1500s.
earlier.
It could be earlier, it could be later.
Yes, yes, yes. But wait, what was I just going to say? I just lost my thought. What was I going to say?
Cannibalism, pioneer guy, Civil
Thank
War
you.
guy.
It made me think of one of my favorite stories of horror, which is the Donner Party, which is, of course, people who were traveling west in the 1800s. They took a bad shortcut and they ended up being forced to resort to
That's
cannibalism
so interesting. I wonder how many people were traveling west,
during.
like when they saw the tree.
Oh, that's interesting. And in fact, we can probably do a little research ourselves because we do have the map in Boyd's home and the sheriff's station that has pins of where everybody came from.
That's right.
So would be curious to see that. And what I was going to say was, wait, you just reminded me of it, and then I lost it again.
While you're thinking about that,
Yes,
this is the realest thing that has ever happened on the show, which is last season, Jim has a conversation that we all see and hear with
Tableau.
Tabula Rosa, with Tabitha.
Tabula
And
rasa.
she says, which is the title of an episode of Lost.
Yes, it is.
I'm not, by the way, everyone, I dipped out of Lost relatively early on. I think probably season 4, and I remember very little of it. So I am
BT
sorry
dubs,
to.
everyone. I watched Lost all the way through. Love it. Love the ending. Big fan and enjoyed the whole show. Strike related issues on that show, notwithstanding.
Anyway, we saw it happen. Tabitha said, "Look, watch these kids. If I don't come back, you're all they have.
So, like, please take extra
Please
special good care of
take extra
yourself.
special good care of yourself. Don't do anything stupid." I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Don't be a fucking moron.
Jim heard nothing.
What did Jim hear?
Jim heard womp 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 womp, like most
Charlie Brown's
spouses
parents?
here.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Interestingly enough, a scientific study revealed that the longer domestic partners are together, the less they can hear each other's voices, volume wise and making out the words that they're saying wise. So
That makes a lot of sense.
it,
That's how we put up with each other in life.
that's right. It bothered me that he was like, "Oh, hey, maybe she wouldn't want me to do this."
You're talking about when he's in the cabin with Kenny,
Yes. Yeah.
and Kenny sort of looks like the audience surrogate there because it
Yeah.
looks like,
Kenny's like, and circle gets the square.
yeah, Jim, that's right. I'm really glad that you pointed it out after we made it to the creepy
Yeah.
village we have to
Remember,
stay in at night.
remember how Boyd told you that exact same thing? And then I also told you that exact same thing. And your wife told you that exact same thing. It's really nice that you're hearing it now. And now the white guy is announcing it to everyone. It's really nice. It's finally reached the
Pardon me,
white
white
guy.
man speaking.
Right,
So
exactly.
ridiculous.
Maybe that's why people don't like him.
I think he comes off a little like smarmy to some people.
Why? Because he's hot? He's good looking?
Well, you did point out, oh, that was funny too, though, because he's got the hair growing out. They do a great job. It's really funny.
Jim and I have the same hair.
They do a great job of kind of like roughing up some of the characters who, looking a little worse for wear. In the beginning, Jim's hair is really fucked up. They have one of my guys, I just have to say, because I meant to say this earlier, I love Harold Perrineau a lot. As I said, I'm from New York. Harold Perrineau has been a stage actor. He was on Oz. He was on tons of things. Is from New York, and I used to see him all the time on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And let's just say I was doing outdoor teenage activities, and I would say things like, "Hey, Harold," and he would always wave and smile. And I have had a conversation with him. Hope to have another, but love him so much. But I was saying they roughed him up a little bit, but it was later when Jim goes home before he goes out again. His hair is completely different. I was like, where did he find some product? And your line was, no, no, he didn't find some product. He found all of the product and has put all of it into his hair.
Yeah, it was too much. I have been there.
I'm not going to harp on it. It just is always funny on a show like this where time is standing still. but there has been in real life a season in between, and people, surprise, surprise, lose weight, gain weight, get haircuts, grow their hair out. And oh, Jade is the other one who we haven't gotten to Jade yet, which we'll get to in a moment. But Jade really is. He looks like he's coming off a bender.
Yeah, he looks rough.
I think Jade's a fantastic actor, though. I really enjoy that character, and I think that his intelligence and ideas bring a lot to the table.
He was so annoying in the beginning, and now I'm very attracted to him, probably because he's an alcoholic ruminator
Yeah, gang, I don't know.
mess.
You tell me what that says about Michelle. Not into him as the Zion tech whiz,
Scion.
Scion tech whiz.
Is it? That means it's his family's money.
Well, let's go with that. That works. I was just pulling a word.
I think you used a word without knowing what it
I
meant,
think I,
hoping that other
I
people
think I
wouldn't
definitely did, and
know.
I think it would have gone across fine if you didn't
If
point
I
it out.
hadn't. All right.
Okay, on to the. So we're still in the log cabin.
No, I thought
You done?
yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I just do you agree that these cabins look much more like 1800s to me? I don't think these look like 1500s cabins.
I can't speak to cabin building
This is solely
technology.
based on my knowledge of going to historic sites in the Northeast growing up. But it
Can
looks,
I tell you a story?
please do. That's what this show's all about.
In my art history class, and I went to community college for a period of time before I was put on. Yes, you can be put on academic probation at community college. I'm a very intelligent gal, but my executive skills could use some work. Anyway, especially back then. Uh, in my art history class, we were presented with photos of Roman temples. And when the teacher asked what they had in common, a student raised his hand and said, "They ain't got roofs," meaning there were no roofs. So, Jack, I have to ask a question here.
Please do.
Do you think they don't? Do you think that, like, when you see ancient ruins, do you think that they didn't have roofs?
No, I think I mean, come on.
So, are you judging these structures based on the fact?
If they have roofs or not,
Yeah.
no, that's ridiculous. Because also, if you think about it, who knows in this time frame where these things are from? If you can put all sorts of things on roofs,
I'm just saying, I've watched Last of the Mohicans many times.
like any nice girl who grew up in the '90s.
Yeah. And was it because of Daniel Day-Lewis? I don't know.
And I saw it too. Was it because of Madeline Stowe? And I
I
don't know.
don't know. Shelters were pretty advanced at that point, and that was like what was that later than I think it is?
No, because
Wasn't
it would
that
have been
pre-Revolutionary War?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 because it's all
Yeah.
English. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying I don't think these are
No,
Civil War era.
I think they look when I what I was saying was I thought they looked more like it's not so much the time frame; it's who would have built cabins like this.
Short people. They're very close to the ground.
I was going to say that it looks more like trapper cabins, like something like in
Seasonal,
seasonal,
like a lean-to.
but also yes, but also more in like the French Canadian trapper kind of
Okay.
thing, which is um kind of like quick erection of huts to get them up. And I think that's why they're so low, because I think it was really just for like heat and protection. But the roof thing that you said is just really funny because it's like people have created like covering for themselves since the dawn of time when
Yes.
your roof was a cave ceiling.
Now,
So,
this is an excellent transition to what I'm talking about. So, I have done a ton of research, and before you fall asleep preemptively, I promise this all comes back to the show and am going to try to be as brief as humanly possible.
and we are going to be as great as we can about putting all of these time codes and links in our notes.
Yes. So again, thank you to the folks of Reddit for identifying the uh again, doing my best. It's spelled Beothuk.
I believe
Apparently
it's
it's
Beothuk or Beothuk.
I think it's Beothuk or Beothuk or something like that. So I'm just going to say Beothuk.
Go for it.
Okay.
If you know better, again, as always, let us know.
So the Beothuk people lived in mammotiques, which are like little tents made of wooden poles tied together at the top and covered in birch bark. So even though we've seen that symbol and we've seen, sorry, my brain, Jade,
Yes.
looking up at that symbol and seeing that it's a bunch of trees together, I just thought that's a similar view would be looking up in a tent and seeing the circle, and the
Absolutely.
sticks covering it.
Now, what you're referring to when Jade sees it is when he's transported to that horror cavern with the Ankui children on the
Yes,
slabs of
sorry, the
stone.
tower.
When
Yeah.
he looks up, it is like a bit of like it's not like a weird sculpture. It's clear that it's like thatched. It's
Yes.
like a top of a roof. It's
Mhm.
a point, and obviously in that culture, you would have to build fires inside, so there's an opening on the
Yeah, you
top,
have to
so
have
you
an opening,
can
yeah.
have an indoor fire. But
Mhm.
I think you have a really good point. It does look traditional, like if you were laying on your back looking up.
Another thing that grabbed me is the Beothuk people had very elaborate burials. So some more shallow graves were marked with rock piles, similar to the ones that we've already seen on the show.
Death.
Others were placed in coffin like boxes with their knees bent up. Um,
That sounds horrible, by the way.
yeah,
I
I
don't
well,
like
if
that.
you're dead, maybe you don't mind so much.
Well,
Um,
it's interesting. It suggests that maybe there's a different, when the soul leaves the body, maybe the body
sure.
is nothing at that point because it's about the soul, not the body.
Yeah. Um, Now, other bodies were laid out on scaffolds, similar to the slabs that the children in the
And by
tower are
scaffolds,
on.
you do mean, because I said growing up in New York, I only know that word from scaffolding, which would be elevated
It's just, I
planks of
think
sorts.
they meant
Just
an
like a
elevated platform, and
gotcha.
I'll cite my sources in the show notes for those of you who are interested in. So I thought there's that connection, um, the burial thing. Graves were adorned with figurines, replica tools, and pendants. And I thought, okay, is that the talisman? Because the talisman be something. Much of what we know about the Beothuk people comes from a woman called, again, please forgive me, I'm trying my best, Shanawadithit. She was found, and I'm putting that in air quotes because, come on, this is a whitewashed narrative, I think,
Literally.
by a trapper, along with her mother and sister, who
Yes.
both sadly died of tuberculosis after reaching St. John's, which was like the main settlement in that area of Canada.
It's the capital city of Newfoundland today.
Yes, there you go. Um, I'm going to call her Shauna. So Shauna was a domestic worker until the explorer William Cormack brought her to the Beothuk Institute. She taught him the language. I've dug up some of her drawings. Um, and I'll maybe put that on our website at some point. So she taught him the language. She made, I think, a series of 10 different drawings where she was able to, they had a very high literacy rate. Now, we'll get to that in a moment. Sadly, she also died of tuberculosis in 1829, and she was thought to be the last quote unquote full blooded Beothuk woman in existence. Um, any questions so far?
No, no, no. I mean, we talked about all of this, and I just think it's a really interesting thing that you stumbled across because there's so much in the drawings that you found, which we will put a link to, that looks like it's like from the set designers of
Yeah,
From.
exactly, exactly. Um, So Shauna described three distinct figures in the Beothuk mythology.
Yes.
One is the Great Spirit. One is a powerful monster from the sea who could be a dragon, just saying.
Yep.
The third is the Black Man or the Man in Black.
Now it's a little confusing in that wording. We don't know if it's a black man or a man in black. It's kind of
I think
neither
you
here
could
nor
go
there.
either way with that, but in the drawing, he is a white man or possibly Asian man dressed in
Yes.
all black.
Yes.
And it says on the drawing, seen at the Great Lake, the black man or red Indian's devil, short and very thick. He dresses in beaver skin, has a large beard.
To me, that sounds like a French Canadian trapper again, which is why I keep going to that. But
Yeah.
do you get that vibe from that? Because who else would be running around with a big beard, a white guy with pelts?
Well, we've debated on this drawing whether I mean, I guess he is, this is kind of pilgrim like dress,
Yes.
so I,
Yes.
I get that. It also happens to look like he has giant pendulous breasts.
I
Um,
think that's the
and we
beaver
joked,
pelts.
we joked that maybe she tried to draw an arm twice and like couldn't get the hand.
We're
Um,
not laughing at her. We're trying to
no.
break up some of this horror that we're confronted with.
Yes. Now, this is the key part of.
I have a question. I want to come back to
Mhm.
black man thing, but go ahead.
Okay. This is the key part of my theory. So, Shauna told Cormac that the first white people to arrive in Newfoundland were from the Good Spirit, while later explorers, so the French, English, as well as the Micmac people, were from the Bad
And
Spirit.
Micmac is another tribe, correct?
Yes, they are closer to Inuit peoples.
More native Canadians. So he would
Mm.
apologize if that's incorrect out
No,
there.
so it's difficult to. So genetically, the Beothuk people. It sounds like I'm saying basic with a lisp.
It does.
The Beothuk, supposedly genetically, the Beothuk people are a mix of indigenous peoples of North America or native persons of North America or First Nation.
Hmm.
If you are First Nation and there's a word that you'd prefer we use, please tell us. We're here to learn. And I'm more than happy to be corrected.
As am I.
Um, so it's a mix between that Viking people, so early
Oh, so
Scandinavian people, Norse people, if you
going
like.
back to when people may have first found North America in history. I mean, as the Vikings are thought to have gotten to at least to Canada.
The first, let's say, European people to arrive there. We don't want to
Yes.
say discovered because it
Sorry,
was already
I
there.
did.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I
No, I
meant
know, but
yes,
we're
yes.
undoing, well, you went to a fancy private school. I can't say that, but for myself, but this is what we're trying to do a lot of internal correction and redirection when we speak, because obviously we were taught one version of history that we now
Yes.
know not to be true. Anyway, a religious principle, that's her word, not mine, demanded that the Beothuk who made peace with white colonists or Micmac were to be sacrificed to the spirit of their slain brethren. This is where it comes back to Fromville.
Tie it together, sister.
Okay. I think the monsters are all people who were sacrificed because they tried to make peace with like the spirits of the forest. So this, probably not the first, but the people around who all disappeared
Hmm.
in 1978 or whenever it
You're
was.
talking about when Victor's mother and
Yes.
sister. Okay, yeah,
Yes.
that incident.
So all of those people who were sacrificed, either they tried to connect with and communicate with the spirit somehow, and so they all turned into monsters, or it's expected that the people of Fromville are going to be slain because they're trying to communicate with the Force, and these are their ancestors, so to speak.
Okay, I love the theory, but I have a question.
Please.
Why are they all white, and
Hmm.
why do they all sort of look like they're from like segregated, like early 50s America?
Well, I think you answered your own question there with why are they all white?
So they're all white based on the fact that they give it to me. How did I answer my own question?
Because you said segregated.
Oh, so you think that okay, so you're saying this is like they're a segregated population, the monsters?
Yeah, originally, I think they got there. They're not the first people, but they're maybe people who.
Are these outward 50s looks? Are they just costumes? Are you saying like they could pick up any costumes they want?
No, no,
Okay,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the people who were maybe the people who were wiped out in 1978,
gotcha.
originally got there in the 60s or 50s.
Oh, okay.
This is who they were. This is how they dressed, in the same way that we have like people in the town and whatever wearing contemporary clothes.
So if they feel vaguely racist, maybe it's because they are vaguely
I'm
racist.
sure they are.
Well, it stood out to me because I'll come back to this now because just black man or man in black or whatever.
Right.
Come on, we got a thing where a bunch of white monsters dressed in 50s clothes are like really looking to torture a
A
black
black
man
man.
who's
Yeah.
in charge of
Mhm.
keeping the town safe. Obviously, we're talking about Boyd. And it became this really jumped out at me as like a malevolent like fuck with you Boyd force when not just obviously it's horrific at that last scene that they make him watch what happens to Tien Chen, but that weird cowboy monster who tells Boyd, I heard what you said, and you think this ain't going to break you something. We're going to break it, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
It felt so fucking creepy, racist,
It
like
did feel like
when they're
racially
dragging him with
based.
handcuffs to
Yeah.
go, and
Mhm.
then even in that, and I just and I we're running long here, so I just want to cover a couple of things. I don't know, and listeners, please let me know if I somehow missed something. I know that we know that that Boyd was infected with the worm parasites from Martin, and it was in the dungeon, and we know that that was able to kill Smiley, the monster,
Mhm.
and we know that whatever was going on with the worm blood, he was able to give the transfusion to Ellis when Ellis needed a
Right.
transfusion. What I'm confused about is did he use up the worms? Does he have antibodies? Because that's like where my mind goes medically. Because why are they so hell bent on I got to I got to we got to torture this guy and make him watch horrible things. And let's specifically just slash him where he just got shot with a shotgun, nowhere else. And let's make him watch, but we're not going to kill him. Why aren't they going to kill him?
I don't know.
And
It's
that's, I mean, that's obviously a mystery right now, but it's just interesting to me. And I'm just throwing it out there like, can they not kill him? Because because he's like poisonous to them? I'm not sure. But I think that it suggests that um, Boyd's connection to Fromville and everything going on and the spirits and everything, I think it may be very strong. I mean, it is very strong. They're making an example out of him. And I don't know to what end at this point. You have any follow-ups on that?
no, I think you've put that rather well. If you don't mind,
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to tie up these two
Of
last little
course. Let's
connections.
do it.
So, once again, uh, Demis Stewart was Shauna's ancestor. I believe it was her great aunt.
Mm-hmm.
She was captured following an attack by British colonizers in the winter of 1819. Her husband was murdered, and she begged to be spared to care for her child. She actually exposed her breasts to the colonizers to
To show
demonstrate
that
that
she
she was
was
breastfeeding this
okay.
child.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, she was still captured and taken against her will to St. John's. The governor there, the Canadian governor, demanded that she be returned to her people, but she died on the way home. What made me think of this was the accused witch had a similar story. She also begged to be reunited with her child. She had a lost child, the one that is supposedly playing this card game with the devil, the accused witch.
Yes.
It also ties to maybe uh, the voice that Kenny's dad hears in the beginning. I want to see my son.
Now that was really interesting when you mentioned that to me because I remember because I just rewatched a couple of weeks ago, and I remember in that scene it just felt like, oh, that's sad. This guy has Alzheimer's. He just wants to see Kenny. But now, what you're saying, it does bring in like, was he talking like about himself, or was he repeating something he was hearing?
Right, right. It could be either, that could be a massive reach.
Yeah, but this is all about theory crafting.
Yes. The final thing that I want to mention is that supposedly this whole bargain with the devil thing with the accused witch came about or coincided with an Italian explorer named John Cabot. Obviously, that's his
I was
anglicized
just gonna say
name.
John Cabot's an Italian guy.
It was like Gianni
Cabotore.
Cabatore. Yeah.
I'm part Sicilian. I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah. His ship was called the Matthew, and obviously we have the Matthews family who arrive in a
In
camper van.
yes,
Yep.
yes,
Uh, Boyd's Cove is a real place in Newfoundland on in sort of like the northeastern part. And it that was discovered in the 80s. So that was in the 1980s, I should say.
it was discovered for the first time in the 1980s.
Yes, but that site is connected to John Cabot's excursion, whatever you want to call it,
Ah,
pillage. Um, so it's interesting that there's those two names. And that's all I have this week,
one
folks.
more, because I brought this up to
Oh,
you.
okay.
Was just the name of the hospital where Tabitha is. Was it Saint Anthony's?
Yes, it was Saint Anthony. I'm Jewish, but
So am I.
but Catholic.
So we're gonna. We might need a little help on some of this.
Yeah. I
But Saint Anthony is, what is he? The patron
He's
saint
the
of,
patron saint of lost things.
yes. So that,
So
hey, I
it's a
just,
little on the nose,
but they're doing a
but
lot. They're doing
yeah,
a lot.
they're doing a lot. So that pretty much wraps it up. I want to again thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for giving us a chance. We are very new to this space. We love feedback. Email us apng@gmail.com. Let us know if you want your emails to be read on air. What? I'm sorry, apngpod@gmail.com. My learned friend and colleague has
I was
corrected
mouthing
me.
it. Also, Instagram. Look for APNG, All Pleasure, No Guilt, APNG Pod,
Yeah,
APNG
at
Podcast.
APNG Pod. We do mostly cover reality shows. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can join our Patreon. You get this ad free. If you happen to be into reality shows, you can listen to the other content, but I'm going to be posting pictures of everything that I've been talking about, slideshows of everything that I'm talking about. And once again, shout out to gifted and very insightful Reddit user, Taryn Matheru.
Matharu.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, as we wrap up here again, if you haven't noticed, I've been pushing interactivity throughout the show. Really want to make this an interactive space. I think it's the most fun way to kind of talk and cover about a show like this, and just kind of get into it with everybody. And look, From's about community. I opened this talking about how we enjoyed the thematic societal relationship elements. So I'd like to create a community for people who love this show and want to talk about it. And, enjoyed our coverage of it and want to get back to us.
And if you love us, and only if you love us, please leave a 5-star review. If you don't know what to say, just say love from Fromville.
Yes,
That's it.
that would be fantastic.
Anything less than that, go about your day. You can We are always open to feedback. I'm Michelle Snark on Facebook. You can DM me. Yeah.
I'm Jack on Facebook too. We have a Facebook group which you can find. All pleasure, no guilt. Again, it's going to be mostly reality stuff, but if we get enough Fromville people in there, we'll make a little separate
Yeah,
area.
we'll make you a whole different group.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're looking to grow it, everybody. We are super excited. I am very excited to see the next scene on this show because that last scene stuck with me.
Yes, it did.
So looking forward to picking it up from there, and we will be back this time next week, and we can't wait to unravel what's going on in From with all of you.
We love you.
That's it.